Welcome to the channel. In today's exclusive interview, we are joined by Professor Teresa Nmadu with an impressive 30 years of experience in the poultry industry. From navigating tough challenges to achieving remarkable success, she's done it all. In this one-on-one, she's sharing her journey, the obstacles she's overcome, and the secrets to thriving in a tough but rewarding field. If you are curious about how to succeed in tough times, this conversation is for you. Maybe you should tell us more about the farm, how it's been so far.
So, this is a poultry farm. The name is Koinonia Enterprises.
Okay.
You would want to know what is the meaning of Koinonia. Koinonia in Aramaic is fellowship, or Hebrew fellowship. When we conceived of the farm, it was on 30 years ago.
30 years?
So he said,
That's a long time.
What do we want the farm to do? We wanted to develop self-sufficiency and additional streams of income as academics. But in addition to additional streams of income, we thought that this could be an avenue for also funding the gospel and God's work. So Koinonia is built on that premise that we can use it as a platform for investing more in God's kingdom, apart from the being self-sufficient.
Okay. So can you get to tell us about yourself? Let's get to know you some more. What do you do, and how did you venture into farming?
I'm a full-time academic.
Okay. And
something I absolutely love. But I also discovered that sometimes passion is not one-sided. It has a few dimensions to it. I like to watch change. I want to see growth. So I was gravitating towards poultry initially because we wanted to provide a balanced meal for our growing children when they were ages say 4 and 2. So we started looking into nutrition and thinking of how they could eat at least 3 eggs a week and have chicken twice a week. That is what gave birth.
Yeah. So it did not start all this
as a business.
How did it start? With a chicken feather?
No,
or
I think
you know how people say I started my farm with just a feather or one chicken, and then today it's a miracle.
So we did broilers a couple of times before we decided to do layers. But once we did layers, you know, like playing around slippery water, you will fall in, and we fell in. So from that time till now, I think we're at our 44th set of layers.
Wonderful. So, but how are you able to manage through running the farm and also your regular jobs? Because I know this is not the only thing you do, and this on its own is a huge task. It's not an easy one. So being able to, you know, run the two and be successful at both ends, it's something, you know, worth sharing.
If you have under 500 chickens, it's not something you need somebody to employ. Until we began to have 1,200, we didn't employ a full-time worker. And we also use it to encourage our children to learn house chores. So we'd take care of the chickens in the morning, go to our various endeavors. But being an academic means that I have a control over my time. So get ready, finish my poultry work, make sure everything is assured, go to my workplace, come back in the evening. All of us will do the poultry again.
Wow.
So we didn't have paid labor, so we enjoyed both the risk and the profits fully.
Was it an automated system you were using? Because I know how consistently these birds will need attention.
No, because we had under 1,000 and then just 2 pens. Simply put sufficient drinkers that will take them from morning till evening. And you know, the weather in Jos is very favorable. to growing birds. So the water doesn't get extra hot or that. But in 1995, we incorporated the business. It became incorporated, and then we had a board of directors. Began to also have staff. At as at now, we have 10 staff on the farm, and then other security details.
Okay. So you talked about this incorporation. What does it really do to a business? And is it necessary, especially for agri-business?
Yeah, because if you are not incorporated, then you are not known. The banks don't know you, government doesn't know you, the associations don't know you, and no business can exist without that network. You need to be known by the banking system. If, in fact, when you are making payments in millions, how can you not be incorporated? So it's very important that we're incorporated, and I say it's important that we also pay our taxes where necessary. It's not true that agri doesn't pay tax.
Okay.
The local government comes here and we pay them. The state government comes here and we pay them. You fall based on your turnover per annum. You fall within a certain tax range. Not that much, but you fall within it. Besides, the way I define business, I didn't say I was my background is business. The way I define business to students is that business goes to society, asks for permission to use the resources of society to meet with the needs of society profitably. So you are located in society, you are using the resources of society, and you are meeting with the needs of society. Part of that, our civic responsibility, is to also pay our tax as at when due.
Interesting. So it's been 30 years, 30 years is such a long time. In fact, my whole life is not up to 30 years, and you've been doing this business that long. So what has challenged you the most in these 30 years of running a poultry?
I think in these 30 years, I will just say that it's a process of learning. It's not just for the poultry business, but for every business you do, you need to have an attitude of learning. And as things evolve, you also evolve. Like when we started the business, I would say we were pretty analog and very ignorant because I was coming from the field of business and trying to do something in agri. But you need to learn, go to the experts, go for training and webinars if they are called for. These are the ways in which I've learned. I've also subscribed to Poultry International so that weekly I read a newsletter and catch up with things that are happening in the poultry industry. In fact, I consider myself a very savvy poultry farmer now, but I'm a part-time poultry farmer. I'm a full-time academic, but I'm a part-time poultry farmer because there's a manager that runs the farm, but I also give remote control, remote managing. I think in all these 30 years, we have only had 2 sets on which I would say we made a total loss. But in the other years, even as difficult as it was, as you grew more efficient and looked at your cost contributors, we learned some things not to do and things to do. Like you have once asked me and said, why didn't I make my feed? And I'm a part-time poultry farmer and I'm not an expert in that area. And sometimes when things go wrong, you can't tell where something has gone wrong. So we take commercial feed, and I think we are more efficient than people who claim that they are making their feeds, because sometimes you are being penny wise and pound foolish.
That's right. So because for some people the major challenge is the feed, because if you look at expenses when it comes to running a poultry, bulk of the expenses goes to feeding.
Feed is a major cost.
So I'm sure that could be the reason why some people would decide, well, if there is any way I can cut costs, by trying to make it myself. So but looking at it in that way, would you advise people to actually formulate feed themselves, or still stick to those the company feed and just buy it and try to find other ways of making profit out of the business?
So one of the killers of our business is lack of record keeping.
Okay.
People hardly have accurate records of their farm and everything that goes in by way of cost. Without doing that, how do you know that you are being profitable? But we do very rigorous record keeping. In fact, every day I do the math. Take what the costs are for the day, at least feed. Look at what the output is. Did it cover it? Before we begin to talk about overhead and all of that. So, yes, the business has gone very, very expensive. The financial outlay is even huge. Like, I was looking at the last set of birds that came into lay 5 weeks ago. It's money. Plenty of money.
And you know, talking about the profitability now of the business, people would say that poultry business is profitable.
It is.
But then going into it, and then especially for those who are just beginning, you discover that the expectation, because for some people they feel if I go into this I will become a millionaire in a short time. So some people's expectation is being dashed, you know, just going into it and then expecting to, like the young people will say, to blow, but you end up being blown.
So there may be two things happening.
Yes.
They have not separated the business from themselves.
Okay.
If you separate the business from yourself, the business will have its own account. If you have loaned the business startup capital, the business will pay you back. It is only after the business pays you back that now you can begin to say, can this business also sustain itself over the years? And it should. So the problem I see is not that it is not profitable, it's that we don't distinguish between the business and our money. We have been doing survival. So ab initio, you didn't carve out what that business would need from beginning to the end. I've told you we've done this over. So now I have worksheets. Every time I start a particular set, there's a worksheet from the cost of the day old to the point of where they will feed themselves. I have forecasts. This is what we should be spending. Do you have that amount of money? Does the business have that amount of money? And the business ought to have. But you see, what our people do is that they pocket the change. Like I had to talk to a younger farmer. I said, what do you do with the cracks? He said, we eat them. I said, but somebody is paying the cost. The farm is paying the cost of those cracks. Or people appear at your farm and they say, you have not given me something in a long while. You take a crate of eggs we give, you know it's not documented. That crate of eggs is paid for. So we, even if it is cracked eggs that were taken from the farm, somebody pays for it. You can't bring eggs to this house that is not paid for. We have separated the business from ourselves. If we loan the business money, we pay us back. So I would say it's profitable, but it's also a long haul thing. You see the money, but it's not supposed to be blown on yourself. You're supposed to consider the sustainability. Can you put the money aside for the next one? Can you put aside money for the next row, the next batch, and all of that? And then running or growing birds is getting expensive. As at the last time, for the bird to feed itself profitably, you have to put 8,500 per bird. 8,500 per bird.
Someone was calculating 10,000 just of late now.
So I don't know what their costs are, but like I said, when I'm doing this forecast, of course, I'm not forecasting housing because we already have housing. I'm not forecasting equipment. We already have equipment. It may very well be that I'm just talking about the variables, the inputs.
So as a way of encouraging young people now, why is it important for young people to venture into agriculture. Now, aside young people also, you also have another community, those people who are looking to retire soon and would want to have some other ways of sustaining themselves. So talking to this group of people, is agriculture, poultry farming really something they should consider?
It's something they should consider, but it will be a matter of skill. I need them to know whether they have what it will take. Do you have the space? Some of them are banking on parents' spaces. Have you asked permission? Did they agree that they can loan you the space? Will you pay them for the space and for the utilities? These are things that young people take for granted. But number one, you need the space. Availability of yourself. Do you have the time, or do you think that somebody will come and run the business for you? If you are going to ask somebody to come and run the business for you, you have already written number 2 steps to failure.
Whoa. So you have to be there on ground.
One of the things I know about the poultry business is that it requires close monitoring. That is why when we were scaling up, we decided that we'll be very close to the farm. This was before Plateau State government came and said you can't do farming in residential areas, but we had already had our title to the place before all of this came up. But it was for that reason alone we said a farm and us, we cannot stay very far because so much can happen overnight, and sometimes caregivers are presumptors. They don't know the magnitude of what the problem is. It's you who is experienced, who sees trouble and says this is something that you should attend to as quickly as possible. So for the young person, do you know what it will take to raise a bird, whether it's broilers or layers? Do you know what it will take? By the way, they average the same thing. What it will take to raise a broiler in 8 weeks is about the same amount it will take to raise a layer over 6 months.
So discipline has to play a key role in all this. Discipline, you have to put in time, your energy,
your money,
yes,
your
and you
heart.
have to take records.
Your heart.
And there are predictions that there would be famine and scarcity of food with insurgency and some of these things happening around.
Climate change.
Yes. So what role should the government and NGOs, people in position of authority do now, in the agri sector to kind of provide a direction? Because if nothing is done, then we may end up becoming victims. But if we take some steps now, then the future would, be better, and we'll be able to sustain ourselves even when some of those situations will come. So what role should be played from now? What strategic steps should be taken?
I think a couple of years ago, remember when is it Akinwumi, the person at the African Development Bank? Yes. When he was the Minister of Agriculture, he was looking at the farming model in Nigeria and saying, we're not doing farming as business. I guess because there are so many smallholder farmers. If we wanted to consider agriculture as business, then we have to put enablers. What are the needs of young people? Young people who want to go into agri may not have land. They may not have facilities. They may not have equipment. But we can loan them and say, as you make profit, you pay us back on the equipment that you have loaned. And I think last year I came across an NGO, but they were doing that for arable farming. They will say, are you interested in farming? Yes. Do you have a piece of land that your father or mother has made available? Yes. What do you want to farm? So that they will not give you cash. They will provide inputs. Give you the seedlings, give you and it was a grant. So it's like if they were dispersing the things in stages. And if you could successfully finish one circle, you are qualified to come back and apply on a circle. So can you see that this kind of interventions will be helpful to young people? Because I think when you put cash directly in the hands of people, they might apply to other competing needs.
Sure.
The other thing that works not in the favor of young people is also not even having an education in the areas of business they want to do. Every business has its intricacies. It has its body of knowledge that minimally you need to know to be able to succeed. But so you don't just wake up and say, because this thing looks glamorous, there will be work before you see the money. There's always work before you see the money. And even in these days where technology is intervening, technology is evolving when it comes to the poultry industry in terms of scale and in terms of the amount of money to turn things around.
Okay, so as a way of concluding, what advice would you give to farmers, especially those who are considering joining, and then another category, those ones who are in the business but are weary, with all that is going on, the economy going down? What encouragement can you give to them, looking at how you've been able to survive through these 30 years despite all that you have faced in the business?
Any business at all requires perseverance. It requires digging your heels into the ground and staying put. Not this fair weather thing that if it is good, we're here, or we just do chickens for Christmas or for festivities. That's ad hoc. You won't get the real benefits of staying in the business. But when you stay in the business, like I said, with learning and with growth, you'll be able to chart your profitability. I didn't even tell you how we grew. I think in the 30-year period of this farm, it is in the last 3 years that we accepted equity from friends and family. We generally just expanded gradually. People come with the notion that if you are going to invest on a large scale, you must go and also get large scale money. But if you haven't learned how to steward money on an incremental basis, on a daily basis, and the thing with poultry money, for layers that I like, every day you are getting an alert. Every day you are getting an alert. It shouldn't go into your pocket, it should go into the business's pocket. But the other thing also that people don't do is that they don't pay themselves.
Yeah.
They do everything, but they don't pay themselves. So you see, they are now tempted to think that what is coming into the poultry is theirs because they've not been paying themselves. If you're paying yourself, you won't go to the poultry and take something else. Run the poultry as a business. Do it, and it will pay.
Awesome. It's really been nice discussing with you, Ma, and I'm sure lots of useful information you've given us out there would help young people wanting to venture, and then the people in need to also keep their heads high.